You doing, brother? Yo, I was thinking today, I'm getting excited, bro. I'm going to get a chance to hang out with you here shortly.
I know. You'll be in town next week, so
I know. You know, we're always trying to bring to the agent community content that is relevant and also, you know, applicable. So in other words, what do agents need right now at this moment in order to help them to get their unfair share of the business? And then also simultaneously making sure that it's tactical. So not just theoretical, right? But equipping them with the actual tools that they need in order to produce those outcomes. My hair is crazy right now, dude. What's going on? And we were talking about it. You know, we regularly each week say like, hey, you know, what should we be doing here? And we figured working on the actual listing presentation itself, because in preparation for coming out to Cali, we're going to be doing a high-level mastermind for a select group. It's lucky, you know what I'm saying? No, I'm just kidding. So go ahead.
Do they know that you normally charge to come out? And
I don't even know, bro, but you know, it's all good. So, yeah, like we're going to be doing that mastermind. And in preparation for that, I've mentioned this week, what was really kind of mind blowing to me was just how much in that geographic area, in that county, transaction volume has dropped. It was like 58%, bro, from 2021, the peak till today, which is enormous. And what that means logically is that when listing opportunities present themselves, the probability that you're going to be competing is very, very high. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as such, it naturally makes sense to kind of deduce from that one of the ways I can deal with that is by ensuring that my presentation is tip top.
Yeah. The one thing I've been working on for the last 2 weeks is I've already got another agent script. Literally, I get that one every single day.
Every day without exception, right?
Without exception. And all I need to do is I know that if I get my foot in the door and I give a good presentation, the odds of me taking the listing are extremely high versus if I'm not able to get my foot in the door. But I think the having a strong presentation is key. And I don't know anybody with a stronger listing presentation than you besides me, you know? So.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, dude. I love it, bro. I love it. Yeah. So we figured like, hey, let's run through one. So that way, and what I think would be helpful is to not just run through it, but to also run through it while simultaneously kind of discussing what's actually happening, right? Like where we stop, like pause for a second and say, okay, here's why we're doing this. Then jump back in. Then pause and be like, hey, here's why we're doing this. And I think both of us, because we have this really awesome kind of natural, collaborative kind of energy in that, you know, we can come up with stuff together, like as it's kind of progressing and really add a lot of value in my opinion. So
the other option that I was thinking, the other option is if you wanted to, we can run through a presentation as well too, as to how I am doing it whenever somebody requests a cash offer on their property, and how I transition from a cash offer presentation to a listing presentation. And obviously I've set certain expectations up front, but like if I'm pre-qualifying them and they're telling me, hey, look, I want X price, I already know in my head that the cash offer is not going to work out in that.
Yeah. As well, yeah. Too. And I think that's like a whole separate
video.
Yes. A whole separate video on like,
maybe next week.
Yeah. Here's how you present. And we could do that one live, truthfully.
Yeah.
Like maybe on Wednesday when I get there. So like, here's how you present when the hook was the cash offer.
Yeah.
Right. Here's how I pre-qualify that. And then here's how I would go over and do the presentation where let's say they're open to both. Like, how do you actually augment the listing presentation to where I'm going to be presenting to a cash offer situation? And the reason why I think that's so valuable, Jose, is because one of the things we're going to be sharing with that group in terms of the mastermind and what is working right now, without question, are cash offers, like 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Roy Ray said you guys remind me of Kobe and Shaq. No, it's more like Kobe and MJ, Roy. Come on, bro.
Yeah, I think that's yeah.
All right. So, and I think that would add a ton of value, right? So
100%.
let's get into the listing presentation. And this is assuming as well that you've pre-qualified fully. Okay. So we're operating under that assumption. You have asked, you know, all the who, what, where, whens, and whys. You were assumptively closing in pre-qual, right? You are using it as a mechanism to move the process forward. We have videos on how to do that. Because if you just hear me do this without understanding what we did there, you might be like, oh, that won't work, or that's abrupt, or like this. If you do this properly, though, in terms of the pre-qual, this fits in perfectly in terms of a puzzle piece. Because I've managed the expectations completely. I've assumptively closed. And the last question I asked in pre-qual is like, you know, Jose, you strike me to be someone who's super straightforward and to the point. I'm the same way. So when we do connect, provided that it makes sense, of course, right? Numbers work. And you feel comfortable and confident with me that I can help you do that due diligence. You check me out online, you see track record and reviews. Do you think you would be open to the possibility of hiring me to help when I see you tomorrow at 6? And they're either going to say, yeah, or they're going to say, maybe, or they might say no. Now, more often than not, they'll say yes or maybe. Probably 20% of the time, they'll just flat out say no. And that's a whole nother conversation that we can go over, right? But if they say yes or maybe, you're like, okay, great. So what I'll do is I'll bring with me the updated market analysis that I'll be sending to you via email. So that way we can review it together as a team and figure out how we need to position the property to make sure we maximize value and get you top dollar. I'll also have with me the appropriate listing paperwork, the documentation. So provided that it all makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident, Jose, we can take the next steps. Does that sound like a plan? He's like, yeah, sounds great. And in doing that, you see, if you do that properly, they understand that when you see them, what the expectation is. It's not like we're getting together to just have a chit chat. It's not like an initial consultation where you can look at the property and give me some feedback before I decide if I want to do something or not. They know before you get there the purpose and intention of meeting, right? And I see a lot of agents, Jose, I'm sure you see this too. If they don't do this step and they don't kind of create the environment that makes somebody conducive for them being receptive to your request before you make it, it makes the whole process more difficult.
Mm-hmm. I could also see agents fighting this as well too, being like, oh no, like that's not the way that you do a listing presentation. And the reality is that anybody can take a listing, but taking 200 listings in a year is a completely different process. So what Aaron's basically sharing with you is just that roadmap as to how he was able to take 200 listings in a year. Because in order to do that, you have to be extremely efficient and tactical with the process. If not, like there's agents out there going crazy with 10 listings, you know, in a year.
Oh yeah.
Versus 200 versus 200 in a year, you know?
That's right. Yeah, or they go crazy taking like 3 in a month and they're like, oh my God, this is like so overwhelming. So to your point, I think you're absolutely right. And this goes back to like what we've talked about before, which is that your goal dictates your approach. If your goal is to take 10 listings a year, don't listen to anything that me and Jose are saying. You know what I'm saying? Like you could just keep doing it the way you want, take 2 to 3 hours to do listing presentations, try to sell with personality. Like, oh my God, you have a puppy, I have a puppy, like, you know, that sort of thing. If you want to take 50 to 100 listings per year or more, then listen to what we're saying, because this is from a tactical, strategic approach, the most efficient way to do it. And the way we know it's the most efficient way to do it is from experience, not out of theory. Mm-hmm. Not because we read it in a book and, oh, this is cool. It's like, no, Jose's a top listing agent in his county for the last 3 years in a row. I was
6 years, bro. 6 might even be 7.
Hey, who's counting, bro? Who's counting? So, and I was also the top listing agent in my geographic area for an extended period of time. So it's coming from experience, right? So now we've done that. We've pre-qualified properly. We've managed expectations. We sent the pre-listing, package, all that stuff, bomb video. And we did a whole nother video on that, on the procedurally, how to increase the chances that they're going to be receptive to your request before you even see them. Because as consumers, what we're used to doing is doing a lot of that homework up front before we meet the person if we even meet them at all. So we're going to websites, we're checking out reviews. Like, you can send me anything I'm going to have to review. So that way, like 80% of the decision's made. Now it's just an issue of us connecting, going over terms and conditions, and then signing a contract, right?
Agreed.
So we're just managing the environment to do a lot of that up front, which goes back to your issue of efficiency, because then I can be in and out in like 45 minutes. And then I can go on 2 of the 3 of those appointments a day, right? Okay. So now it's time for the actual presentation. So we hit the door, knock on the door. Remember to smile, team. I remember when I first started, Jose, I don't know if this was you, bro. I would be like,
I wouldn't smile. Same here.
So serious, bro. Like, I'm here to list your house. So remember, like, smile. It's the most welcoming thing that you can do as humans. It's biologically programmed into us as like a signal that, like, I come in peace, right? So when you knock on the door, they open the door, smile. Hey there, Aaron Novello here. Nice to meet you. Extend the hand, shake their hand. What I would do is I would say, hey, do you want me to take my shoes off? Just as a sign of respect. Now, even if they tell me no and I see shoes all lined up, I'm still going to take them off, because that means that's their preference, right? And then they're like, and then we break through the threshold, and then immediately I'm going to take control by asking questions, because somebody has to be the guide. They're the hero in their own story, right? They have a goal that they're trying to get to. They have a problem, which is that they need to sell their house, and there's variations of that problem. And we're just the guide to help them to accomplish their goals. And as the guide, it requires that I be in control, right? And the way I do that is by asking questions. So the first thing I'll say is, what I'd like to do is just take a quick look around the house. Would that be okay? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. It's like, great. Well, I'm noticing that the home is really tastefully furnished, Jose. So when we have offers come in, are we going to be taking that with you to your next destination? Or if somebody has interest in it, would we be including it in the sale? And then be quiet. And what we're doing there is we're assumptively closing. Like, when we have offers come in, are we going to be including the contents, or do you want to take that with you to your next destination? And they'll tell you. And subconsciously what's happening is we're moving, that's like a close, right? Because if we have a counter in our mind, people usually say yes after 8 closes. The problem is that most agents don't close until the end. And now you have 8 more to march through. And I promise you, if you've ever put yourself in that situation, you told me before, somebody gave you advice like, close till you get kicked out. You will get kicked out. If you get to the end and you just start closing then, and then it's like one after the other, after the other, after the other, you're going to get kicked out. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's a more elegant, to use your word, way to do this, which is assumptively at closing in the pre-qual, and then start assumptively closing as soon as you hit the door. And then they're going to be like, no, we're going to be taking the contents with us. And you're like, okay, let me make a note of that. Right. And then I would say, as we're walking through, because they're going to tell me about, the rooms and the doorknobs and, all their stuff. I say, yeah. And if I remember correctly, you don't plan on making any changes or modifications before I would start to bring buyers through. You just want me to help you sell it as it is, where it is. Is that right? So notice another assumptive close. So now we're 2 closes in, not including what we did in pre-qual. And they're going to be like, yeah, that's right. All right, excellent. And then when it comes time to take a seat, right, I want to take control of that. Say, okay, great. Well, we can sit here in the kitchen if that works for you. The reason why I'm doing that is if you've been on enough appointments, and if you haven't taken control, you're going to end up in the couch, okay, a soft, fluffy couch, all scrunched up with your suit on, right? All weird. And like, they're sitting over here and you don't know how to, like, right? That happens.
With the dog barking on you.
Yeah, with the dog like humping your leg and barking on you. Like, that's what happens. So I need to take control of the situation. So we can sit here in the kitchen if that works for you. They say yes. Now, I also want to be very, very intentional. Thomas says, what would Aaron do? That's a way of life. That's funny. So what's up, Tom? How you doing, brother? So I also want to be very, very intentional about that seating arrangement, right? Because if I'm sitting across from someone, it's adversarial. Like, if me and Jose, like, you could see his table right now. I'm just visualize for a moment. I'm sitting at the other side of his table and we're speaking to each other. First of all, there's a spatially, there is something in between us, which is the table, right? And it feels like adversarial in a way. Versus this, if I'm sitting at the head of the table, that's different. I am the center of attention, which I want to be. And I have a clear sight of communication with the two people that are involved in the sale, because oftentimes there's two people. And I can direct my communication to them based on shifting where my body is in relation to theirs. So I would always, again, this is procedurally just in my mind how I'm walking through the process, right? And then once we sit down, I begin by saying, first and foremost, Jose, I just wanted to begin to you and Mariela just by saying thank you. Smiling and meaning it. See, Jose, you notice when he does that, he goes, thank you. Or it's thank you for providing me the opportunity to share some information with you, potentially help you with the sale. And that's like just a demonstration that like I think it's like demonstrates empathy. And in order to be perceived as a good guide, one of the things you have to deploy is empathy. The second is competency. But just by saying that demonstrates your emotional intelligence. And I am very appreciative of it. Yeah. Because they could have sat down with anybody. They're willing to share some of their money with me. So if you can really get connected with that and have really mean that, not just like you're a parrot regurgitating what I'm saying, but like you actually mean it, they will feel that. Right? And almost uniformly, you tell me, Jose, because I know it's true for me. Every time I would say that, they'd be like, yeah, like, no problem. Or we appreciate you coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing. Lake, we'll get to that. Lake says, how would you handle, I already have an agent. We'll talk about that. So first and foremost, I just want to begin our time together just by saying thank you for providing me the opportunity to share some information, potentially help you with the sale. I always like to begin these conversations simply by asking a few quick questions, just to make sure we're on the same page. Will that be okay? And they're like, yeah, that's fine.
It would, yeah.
So the first question I have, which I'm pretty positive, Jose, I know the answer to based on what you were kind enough to share with me via telephone in preparation for us meeting, is that you and Mariela, you guys have definitely decided that you're going to sell this home. You're not interested in holding on to it or renting it out or anything like that. Is that right?
No, we've decided that we want to sell it 100%.
Okay, good.
No question about that.
Yep. So we've made that decision. And then that leads me to my second question, which I'm also pretty sure I know the answer to, is you guys want to position the property price-wise to sell. You don't want to give it away. Like, that's for sure. At the same time, you're not interested in having it sit on the market for 6 or 7 months, just testing the market. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I don't want to give it away, but yeah, we aren't interested in testing the market. Now, notice what he said right there. If you don't say the part, you don't want to give it away, that's going to be the response. And that's what it makes a great presenter, guys. If you can incorporate some of the potential objections that you're going to get, it makes the presentation stronger. Because if you don't, like, do you want to price it to sell or do you want to keep it on the market for a long period of time? If you phrase it in that manner, the very first thing that you're going to get is, well, I don't want to give it away. So notice how we incorporated that into the presentation. And now I'm like, oh shit, he beat me to the punch already, basically. So it makes the presentation smoother. The better you are at presenting, the less objections that you get. I
agree. And I think what it's also accomplishing is it aligns me with them. Because they're like, oh, this person gets me. They know that I don't want to give it away.
100%.
And if me and you had, I don't know, $10 for every time somebody told us they don't want to give it away, we'd have just a little bit more money than we have now. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know that they're going to say that. So to your point, I'm just bringing it up. And if you notice my facial expressions, because I noticed when I did that, you smiled because you knew what I was doing. I knew it. Yeah, I was just like, yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to give it away. Like, that's for sure. And with my body, I'm communicating that.
Well, I'll share this with you guys. When Aaron says that now it aligns him with them, what he's doing is he's building trust, because now they feel like they understand him. In my opinion, more importantly than the track record, more importantly than how many years of experience Aaron has or his presentation, the main thing that you have to do is you have to align to be able to build trust. If you don't have trust, doesn't matter what your track record is, doesn't matter what your name is, nothing matters if you don't have trust.
Agreed. Yep, 100%. And this is a mechanism for doing that. And then we get to the third question. right? So, and that leads me to my third question, which I'm also pretty sure I know the answer to, is, I'm aware I sent you over some information in preparation for connecting. I'm sure you did some due diligence. You checked me out online. You saw track record and reviews. So have you and Mariela Jose, have you guys already decided that you would like for me and my team to help you with the sale?
Well, we want to hear what you have to say. Honestly, we are talking to a couple of other people. So, obviously you came highly recommended, or we found you online. So yeah, we're leaning there, but we're not 100% to that point yet.
Yeah, and that's perfectly okay. I know this is a big decision and you want to make sure you're making the best decision possible. I want to be clear that that definitely is my intention, right? So provided that what I say makes sense to you guys, you both feel comfortable and confident with me that I can help, we can come to a meeting of the minds in terms of terms and conditions, which I imagine that we will. I have all of the appropriate paperwork with me, and I'm prepared to go to work for you today. Fair enough?
Fair enough. Now, notice how he's like at the very beginning, the very first thing that he said, that's not a problem whatsoever. So once again, he's aligning himself with them. He's building up trust. That's not a problem. And then he's stating his intention, what his goal is. And it's just a nice way of saying it. Hey, look, I understand that you guys are still considering different options, but my intention is to basically earn your business.
That's exactly right. Yep. And I'm also like, when I said like, yeah, I get it. This is a big decision. You want to make sure you're making the best decision possible. Again, that goes back to alignment. They're like, oh,
alignment.
He understands me.
And he's building trust right there. He's building trust. He's building alignment. Now they're looking at Aaron like, okay, he gets us, which that's the whole thing, that you want them to be like, Aaron gets us. The more that they feel like the agent understands what their goals are, what they're looking to accomplish, and the more in alignment you are with them, the better. Now, obviously, there's going to be ways of polite confrontation as we go through the presentation, but I just want to point those things out because those things build trust.
Yep.
You need trust.
Yeah. And then where I'm going to go from there is Jose was like, well, we're not sure. We're kind of leaning in that direction. Well, great. As I mentioned, I want you to feel comfortable with what you're doing. That certainly is my intention. So provided that what I say makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident with me that I can help, I have all of the appropriate paperwork and I'm prepared to go to work for you today. Fair enough. And he's like, yeah, that's fair. Along those lines, Jose, you shared with me prior to us connecting that in terms of the selection process of an agent, you were looking for somebody that had a great track record. They had really good reviews. They came highly recommended. They can refer you to somebody who can help you with this move as far as the kind of technical component of putting contents, in a truck and getting it to Texas. Is there anything else that you would be looking for from me today that would cause you to feel comfortable and confident just to proceed and put me to work?
I don't know if today, but yeah, those are the things that we are interested. Just to be fully transparent, Aaron, I just want to let you know, we're not the type of people that make decisions on the spot. So just want to be fully transparent with you.
Yeah, and I totally respect that. I really do. What I'm also aware of is that it really seems as though I was thinking about this in preparation for coming here today. You shared with me that in order to make the move happen in the time frame that you want, you have to be out to Texas in the next 115 days. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So what that would mean is in this environment, we have to be under contract in the next 30 to 45 days with a solid offer, meaning that the probability that it falls apart is very, very small because it usually takes another 45 or 60 days to close. Have you considered that?
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be long before we make a decision, so maybe like a day or two, but just so you know.
Yeah, I get it. And no worries at all. Again, my intention is to just help you to make an informed decision. It's never to twist your arm or talk you into doing anything. And it sounds like if we can check off all those boxes for you, in terms of being somebody who can assist you in all the areas that you need help, there is a good chance, whether it's today or perhaps tomorrow, that we'll have the opportunity to earn your business. And again, myself and team and staff are all standing at the ready to go to work for you ASAP. So the good news is that what I'm aware of is that we just really have to figure out what you're looking to accomplish and why, and come up with a game plan to help you to get what you want in the time you want. And in an effort to do that, I'd like to just review some of those questions I asked you over the phone, just to make sure that I'm fully prepared and we can do a great job for you. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that would.
And now we're going to review what happened in pre-qual.
Yeah.
You shared with me that the main reason you're moving to Texas is because your employer is transferring you. You shared with me that you want to make this move happen in the next 115 days, which means we need to be under contract next 30 to 45. You also shared with me that you could use some help with a referral for a vendor who can help make this move for you. Now, would it be helpful or useful to you if I provided you today with a vendor that we know, like, and trust and is licensed, bonded, and insured? Would that assist you in some way?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
If you could leave those with us, that would help us.
Yeah. And then what if I told you that, for our clients, not only will we connect them with that individual, but we can also arrange at our expense to have somebody pack everything up and move you? Would that be of assistance to you?
That would, yeah.
Okay,
That
awesome.
would be helpful.
So let me make a note of that right here. Now, as we proceed with this, right, in terms of like showings and things of that nature, are you usually home? Is Mariela home? Like, how does that usually work?
No. I'm typically the one that would coordinate those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then for showings, we can either have it be where they contact you directly with like a courtesy call, and if you don't answer back, they just come, or it can be by appointment only. Which would you prefer?
By appointment, 100%.
Perfect. And then we can set that up to either a text message or an actual phone call. So what would be your preference?
I would probably say a text message would be my preference.
Okay. And then what would be the best cell phone number for you to do that?
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Now, why do you think I'm doing that, Jose?
You're basically like moving them along in the process. You're almost just like assuming that, like, hey, look, they're working with you.
Yes.
Like,
and the moment that they give you that, like, okay, that's a check. And then it's like, all right, and we can schedule it. We can set it up to where both you and your wife get notification. Would you like that? Yeah. What's the best email for Mariela?
yeah.
Give me the email. So as we're extracting some of that information, mentally, that's moving the process forward, and they already begin to see like they're working with you.
Well, it's almost like too, like I have out-of-state clients that want to have me see a property, and the moment they mail me the keys, I'm like, this is done.
Yeah,
done.
They don't, no listing agreement signed, but the moment you mail me the key, done.
The moment you mail me the keys, it's like we're working together.
Yeah, because if you think about it, Jose, keys, we only give keys to friends and family and people we trust.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment they send you the keys, I've had that happen multiple times too. And I would use it as a tool. So I'd be like, yeah, in preparation for us kind of proceeding, I can go by and take a look at the property. So that way I can give you a clear, realistic picture as to what we could expect to receive on the open market. In order to do that, though, I would just need you to overnight me the key. Would you like my address to do that? And they're like, yeah. And as soon as they do that and send you the key, we're listing the property, bro. You think they're going to call you back and be like, well, can you send me my key back? Like, no, that's done. So that's exactly what we're doing there. And I actually learned that from Neil, because Neil was like, yeah, the moment that they give you the email or they give you the cell phone for the wife, or they give you, it's like they're giving you information that is moving the process forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go through all of those questions. You mentioned you owe like $350 on the property. You're not interested in acting like a bank and hold a note. You just want me to help you to get all of the cash out. Is that correct? And they're like, yeah.
Correct.
And then if we were able to have a photographer out here, like within the next 24 hours, 48 hours tops, where we can take pictures and be up and active on the market by Tuesday of next week, would that work for you guys?
It might be. Yeah, it would. It would have to work for us. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm kind of imagining from a time frame perspective. And again, we'll work with you to make sure that it's done as efficiently as possible. In order to do that, though, I just need to let the photographer know, like, now. So I'll just make a note of that so we can inform him. So that way we can make sure that it happens in the time frame that you want. Does that sound okay?
Perfect. Yeah, it does.
You see what we're doing? Same thing. Just moving this forward like we're already doing this, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, great. Well, I'm crystal clear on what you're looking to accomplish and why. And I feel supremely confident that provided the opportunity, we can help you not only get the most, also make it happen in the time frame that you want. So the good news is, Jose, is we really only have to focus on a couple things today during our time together. The first is your motivation, which is clear. You definitely want to sell. We're not interested in doing something else. The second issue is the price. Now, I prepared for you, which I sent over to you prior to meeting via email, that competitive market analysis for you guys to review. Did you and Mariela get an opportunity to look at that?
To be honest, we did not.
Okay.
fully.
I appreciate your honesty. I know you guys are busy. That's why I brought it with me. And the purpose of that analysis, it's really an attempt to make an educated guess regarding value. And it's comprised of two types of research. The first is what's active on the market right now and not selling, which is actually very, very helpful to us, Jose, because the neighbors, they've done us a huge favor. Do you know what it is?
I don't.
They tested the market for us at prices, and it's not working. We can learn from that. It's very helpful to us. So in other words, if we see a home that's been on the market for 45 days and it hasn't sold and we need to be under contract in the next 45 days, that's probably not an approach that we should utilize. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. The second piece of data we'll take a look at is what is actually sold and closed, what a buyer and a seller have agreed to recently for homes like yours in your neighborhood over the last 3 to 6 months.
Got it.
And in looking at that information together as a team, what's going to end up coming to the surface, Jose, is not a pinpoint to the penny in terms of price, but instead a tight, realistic range as to what would be reasonable. And then from there, it comes down to strategy, because price is a strategy in an attempt to get the most. And we'll go over the strategies that you and Mariela have at your disposal, because I want you to feel comfortable with the one we choose. And whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. Okay?
Got it.
All right. Now, the purpose, as I mentioned, of that competitive market analysis is an attempt to determine value in the eyes of the buyer. Are you familiar, Jose, with the way buyers determine value?
They probably just take a look at what's been selling in the area, and they probably just use some sort of analysis, or maybe in some cases they probably look at Zillow too.
Yeah. So in other words, they use whatever data that they have at their disposal to see what's on the market, not selling, what's sold and closed. And from all of that information, they make an educated decision as to where they would feel comfortable making you an offer.
Correct.
Yeah. So what I find, Jose, sometimes it can be a little difficult, right? I know it is for me anyway, on personal properties that I own. At the same time, it's exceptionally helpful to really do our best to look at this information through the eyes of the buyer, because I'm aware that the buyer's hat is different than the seller's hat.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And really ask yourself, okay, having reviewed the information that we're about to go over together, if you and Mariela were going to buy this home all over again, having seen what's active on the market that you can buy and what's sold and closed most recently in your neighborhood in the last 3 to 6 months, the question to be asking yourself, Jose, as we review this, is where would you feel comfortable making an offer that you believe would be reflective of fair market value? Because more likely than not, a buyer would feel pretty similar to you. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Awesome. So we'll review this information again together as a team. We'll see that realistic range emerge. We'll discuss strategy, because there are strategies that you have at your disposal in terms of pricing a property. And then, provided that it all makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident, we can take the next steps. Fair enough?
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
All right, good. So what's happening in that whole sequence? That sequence, Jose, is so critically important, because to me, the listing presentation is in 3 stages. From the time I hit to the door till the time I sit down at the kitchen table. Mm-hmm. The next stage is from that to the pricing conversation. Mm-hmm. Then the end is handling objections and closing.
100%. Yeah.
And that's the process that we're moving towards. Now, that segment of the presentation where I'm giving them the proper frame with which to review the information is so important, because we are not thinking beings that feel, we are feeling beings that think. Mm-hmm. And we have quirks in our thinking that cause us to inaccurately assess reality. One of them is something called the endowment effect, which is where, because it's mine, I think it's worth more. Like where my stuff is stuff and your stuff is crap. Like that's a normal thing. And all of us as agents have experienced that. When you worked with a seller and they're like, oh man, my doorknobs and I feed the mallards in the backyard and like I redid the toilets, that's got to be worth 50 grand. But then when they become a buyer, they're like, what are these people thinking, bro? They're crazy. What you're watching is the endowment effect.
Well, even for me, I have a seller right now who, when it came time to selling her property, she's like, nope, I'm not budging a penny below the asking price. And now she's out there shopping and she's trying to make lowball offers. She's like, no way that property's worth that much.
You're watching. That's the endowment effect, Jose. That's a quirk in humans' brains that causes us to not see things accurately. The reason why that setup is so important is because essentially what I'm doing with words is commandeering your brain and getting you to view it through the proper lens that will cause you to see it more accurately, which is to look at it as a buyer. And I'm basically guiding you on how to interpret the data, not just showing you and being like, this is what it is, which is what most agents do. They just show them and they're like, here's what I think. Okay, you're going to lose a lot of listings doing that.
100%.
Instead of a higher level skill is using my ability to communicate to help Jose look at this information through the proper lens, which is through the eyes of the buyer, that will cause him to interpret it more accurately.
Yeah. And then I think that's the skill that as agents, like, so doing a market analysis is okay, but I think the value is once you do the market analysis is interpreting the data and presenting the data in a way that it helps consumers see what is accurate. But I think as agents, like, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say that a property sold in November of last year and you're bringing it as a comp, and let's say it's 950 and you're trying to get the seller to list it at 950. And in our market, the market has improved since November. Like, it's actually gone up. So that would be like where you can provide value and be like, look, our market has actually gone up since that time, which means we would be north of that, which is an interpretation of the data. Like, even like if I'm looking at a comp and the property was 0 days on the market, it was funny. I'm getting my property appraised right now, the one in Somis, and the appraiser brings a property and it's 0 days on the market. And it's the only property that sold in the 1-2 range in the entire neighborhood. So my interpretation of that is it didn't get proper market exposure and it sold below market value, basically. But that's the interpretation part of it where you can help, basically.
Agreed. So to your point, like, CMAs can be generated, like via multiple listing services. Like, it's actually not that valuable of a thing. Where the real value is the interpretation of the data and helping people to interpret it accurately.
Yep.
To actually see it for what it is, to overcome that endowment effect, which I know we all have, which is my stuff is stuff and your stuff is crap and mine's better just because it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that properly, you've set the stage. You've basically set their frame to now view it accurately. So now what we're going to do is go through the kind of analysis. Now, for me personally, I think the simpler your message, the less calories somebody has to expend to understand what you're saying, the more easier your message will be received. 100%. So when I see agents do super complicated price per square foot, like all this stuff, like, dude, you're making your message way too complicated. The KISS method, keep it simple, silly, right? So it's like, we would do 3 actives, 3 closed, and a pending or 2. And that's enough information to get a very clear snapshot as to where we need to be. And we would do that in the 8-photo view in the multiple listing service. I would highlight in Adobe Acrobat, we'd print it as a PDF on the desktop, highlight in Adobe Acrobat, beds, baths, or whatever. That's what we would send them, and that's what I would bring with me. And on my iPad. And I know you guys, if you've been watching how I used to give Jose static because he was doing it with paper. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he fought me on it. He's like, no, bro, trust me. And I'm like, okay. And then he had an experience where the lady was like, he's like, yeah, this kitchen's it's a little bit nicer than yours. She's like, hold on, let me get my glasses. And the iPad, she zoomed in. She's like, oh yeah, it's way nicer. And then he was like, ta-da! That's why Aaron's saying that, right? But that's how we're going to present this data.
The other thing I wanted to say is don't get caught up on like the 3 actives, the 3 sold, the 2. Like, don't be like, oh, that's the exact number that I have to use every single time. Because especially in California, some properties are harder to comp out than others. They're not like a typical tract neighborhood where you have tons of comps. I've brought 2 comps to a property. I brought 3 comps. For me, the less comps I have, the better and easier I can paint the picture.
Because of what we're talking about in terms of simplicity.
Simplicity, basically. Like, if I'm having to explain 8 comps, it's going to cause confusion. If I'm bringing like everything like 20 or 30 comps and just averaging it out and price per square foot, it's going to cause confusion. So what I'm doing in the pre-qual is I'm trying to get as crystal clear as to what the property has to offer in terms of features and benefits and the condition. And then I'm trying to bring the comps that best compare to that property, thinking about what objections I'm going to get. Like, so for example, if they're on a big lot, like an acre, I'm going to try to bring properties with big lots and an acre. If they have a pool, I'm going to try to bring comps with the pool. That way, like, because if I bring properties with half an acre, they can be like, oh, well, mine's on an acre. And then you're creating your own objections, basically.
Exactly. So you want to make that clear and concise and make it easy for them to understand. And I think, like he's saying, the numbers, don't get caught up on the numbers. For me personally, as a rule of thumb, like a general rule, 3 actives, 3 closed, 1 pending. If that data is available, that's enough to paint a very clear picture, right? Sometimes the data is not available, but if it is, that's enough. Yeah. And the way we review that, again, with the iPad, and preferably what I would say to them, Jose, is like, I'm sitting at the head of the table. They're sitting here. I'd be like, yep. So once we reach that point, I'm like, yeah, if you guys just want to scoot in, we can get, we can like snuggle up a little bit. And they're always like, ha, ha, ha. But they scoot in closer to me.
Yeah.
And this, again, if you perceive this in every story, there's a hero. The hero has a problem. A guide shows up, gives them a plan, calls them to action. The hero gets what they want and they avoid what they don't want. By saying like, hey, can you like let's snuggle up. It's like we're around a fire. Hey, gather around, right? And they're also getting in closer proximity to you, which proximity is like, that's very much so a thing in terms of like closeness in relationship. If you think about it, how the distance between people, right? Like people you don't know, you're like, hey, what are you doing? Like people you do know and you get close with, like you're okay with them being close to you, right? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, if you want to like just snuggle in for a minute, and they're like, haha, and then they scooch in, and now it's me as the guide showing them something, right? And that's what you want, and it's collaborative because they're next to you, right? And Roy Ray said, my heroes are Aaron and Jose. Come on, bro. We're good guides. You're the hero in your own story. We're just trying to help you to get what you want. Thomas also said, Jose, he said, if he makes enough money and sells enough real estate, maybe I can have hair like Jose one day. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. So
they do have transplants nowadays, you know?
Like, I know. What? Yeah. What, you trying to tell me something, bro? What are we doing?
No. Oh, no. It was just.
I'm kidding. So, anyway, so now we're at this place, right, where now it's time to present the data, and I think there's a way to do that as well. Instead of like you being like, this is what it is, right? Now it's like, yeah, so let's take a look at this first one here, right? This first active on the market. And you can bring that up on your iPad and you're like, yeah, how many, and you can point. Like how many bedrooms that have? And they're like 3, and like how many bathrooms? 2. How much square footage? 1,858. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, in terms of like footprint, this home seems to be pretty similar to yours. Would you agree? And they're like, yeah. It's like, all right, well, let's take a look at the pictures. We would scroll down because there would be the 8-photo view there, and we can zoom in. We see there the kitchen, it's been renovated like yours, right? They have a little bit different colors, but it's renovated. Would you agree? Yeah. And we see here they got, tile floors throughout, and both of their bathrooms have been redone. And having walked through your home, it's lovely. I know you have one bathroom redone, not the other one. And they're like, yeah, that's right. Yep. And they have the pool outside. You see that? And they're like, yeah. Okay. Well, let's take a look at how much they're asking. You see there in the top right-hand corner? And they're like, yeah, 680. And sometimes you might get, and this is an opportunity for you to read what's happening with their physical body and facial expressions. They're like, 680, or they're like, yeah, 680. You know what I mean? Like I can gauge what that does, what that does to them when they see that. But or they might say something like, wow, is there something wrong with it? Particularly if their expectations are like 850. You know what I'm saying? They're like, wow, is there something wrong with that? It's like, honestly, I could see why your response would be that. And in fact, like, no, I mean, it's a normal residential resale. It's not a foreclosure. There's no like big issues in terms of roof or anything like that. Now, what's more concerning to me, Jose, is that DOM there. Do you see that there? Do you know what DOM stands for?
No.
It stands for days on market. It's been on the market for 65 days and it hasn't sold yet. What do you think the buying public is telling us about their price and product?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Let's put ourselves in the frame of a buyer, right? If you were a buyer, and let's say you and Mariela were shopping, and you saw a home that'd been on the market for 68 days and hadn't sold, what would you be thinking?
Is there something wrong with it, or they're probably priced too high?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And being that we just together discovered that there's nothing wrong with it, which one do you think is probably going on here?
Probably priced too high.
Yeah, I agree. Now, notice how skillfully I did that. Did I anywhere tell Jose or make him feel stupid?
No, not at all.
Did I make him get defensive about how he took that opinion? What's up, Marcus?
No.
How you doing, bro? What's up, Martha? Nope, I didn't at all. Could I have? Do most of you? Yes. Well, specifically, what causes you to believe? Like you basically back yourself into like this like fight. But I didn't do that at all. I very skillfully, with very little emotion, helped him to self-discover. And I put him in the frame of a buyer, and then it was easier for him to decide. He's like, well, I don't know. You know why he doesn't know? Because he's thinking like a seller that says, I really want 850 for my house.
Yeah.
Once I put him in the frame of the buyer, guess what? He knew either something's wrong with it or it's priced too high. And then I said, yeah. And based on the fact that we just determined together as a team that there's nothing really wrong with it, which one of those two do you think is really stopping them from getting an offer? And on his own accord, out of his own mouth, he said, it must be the price. Yeah, I agree with you. So let's take a look at this next one. Now, notice what that does. That anchors in Jose's mind that 680 is what?
Too high.
Yes. You see what we've done? Right out of the gate. Okay. And again, this is much more skilled than you trying to tell them, because they're going to argue with you. Now, Ilya says, here, Jose, you see what he says? When I try to ask these questions, they come out awkward. That's because you're not role-playing enough. I love you.
And you're not chanting them. I think a lot of times is like this is what I love about chanting, that I can work on my delivery aspect of it. I've come to the realization, because we have everybody on our team chanting scripts now, like no if, ands, or but, and they're doing it daily, that role playing without chanting is like sparring without ever hitting a punching bag. There's a reason why boxers hit a punching bag, hit a speedball, and then they spar, and then they get into the real fight. It's the same exact process with real estate. Imagine only sparring with somebody, but never practicing that hook, that angle of that hook. If you're not practicing that hook and how to deliver that hook, when it comes time to sparring, you're gonna get beat hard.
Agreed.
So I strongly recommend that you guys chant or write it out or both, role play, and then present, and do so daily.
Yes, like every single day. So that way it comes out like really conversational, and I could be really nonchalant about it, right?
What do your clients tell you that or one of our EXP builders, that he was at day 30 now, and that all of a sudden what?
He doesn't have to look at the page anymore as he's writing it out, or less, because what's happening is it's starting to get ingrained. What's really cool about that, Jose, me or you, we didn't issue a challenge to anybody. They just heard me saying it and heard you saying it. And one person took it upon himself, and he inspired 3 others. And now there's 3 of them that are writing it out like every single day. I mean, that's what I did. I know that's what you did. So that allows you to be able to, have these conversations and make it seem like it's not like scripted when it is, right? The way you get to conversational is when you just do it all the time.
Yeah.
So now we move to the second comparable, right? Another active, and we go through the same process. So let's take a look at this one.
And here's the thing. For some people, they're going to pick up on things faster than others people. Like I have a guy named Sam on my team. The guy picks up things like so unbelievably fast. He's got a really high cognitive score, bro. And then I have other people who it takes more time. So for me, because it took me more time, I had to put in more time. I had to write it out longer. I had to practice more than anybody else, because it doesn't click right away. So you're noticing that if you're noticing that you're not picking up on it right away, it just means that somebody else may pick up on things faster and it may come more natural to them, which means you just have to do it more than that person.
Yeah, you've told me before, like in private settings, you're like, yeah, dude, like I get it. It just takes me a little longer to get it, but I will get it.
Yeah, I will, 100%.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that answers that question about how to kind of ask these questions, right, and be able to do it. It's just repetition, right? So now we're going to move to the next comp and run through the same process on the active side, right? So how many bedrooms, how many baths, what's the square footage? Okay, so this one's pretty similar. Let's take a look on the inside. Again, zooming in on your iPad, kitchen, bathrooms, and that's easy to deduce whether it's as nice or not as nice because you've looked around the property and you know what that has to offer and the other ones have to offer.
And you could ask them for their opinion as well too.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'll say once I show them the property, like, how do you feel this property compares to yours? Like, meaning, like, would you say that this is better? Would you say that yours is better? Or would you say that it's similar? Meaning,
and
they have
by doing that,
you don't have,
I'm sorry,
that they don't have.
Yes, and by doing that, what you also can gauge is their level of rationality.
I was going to say the same thing, rationality.
Because if it's very clear pictures wise that's nicer, and they're like, no, like mine's nicer. You're like, okay, you're out to lunch. Like you're delusional. You're delusional. You're not rooted in reality. I agree.
Yeah.
Martha said she's like you. It takes her a little bit longer. No worries. Just means you got to put in more time, and that's fine. So we go through this process, and what we're doing here by doing this is we're giving a range of like really the higher side, right? Because of what's active. Then we get to the closed, we're giving the other end of that range because that's what's actually closed. So we'll go through the same process with closed. How many bedrooms, how many baths, square footage. Let's take a look at the inside. Okay, so this one, how would you say it compares to yours? It's pretty similar. Yep. Do you see how much they were asking? And they're like, yeah. Do you see right next to it how much it sold for? They'll be like and they'll be like 650 and be like, and how many days was it on the market? 35. Okay, and let's take a look here. Do you see when it closed? Last month. So that's interesting. Now, what's interesting is that begins to tell us why the one that's active at 680 isn't selling. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yes. So do you see what we're doing?
You're painting the picture.
Yes, bro. I'm painting a picture with words. So they can, in their mind, come up with this moving, like this range with a kind of within 10 or 15,000 bucks, like a range.
And I believe that on the CMA portion of it, the whole point is not for you to tell them what their property is worth. The whole point of it is for you to paint a picture with words so that they can self-discover what the value of their property actually is.
That's right.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, and where most agents get this wrong is they think they have to be like authoritative and tell them, and then they don't get chosen for that reason.
Yeah.
Because they associate you with the price.
Or so they feel like you don't understand their home.
Yeah. Or you don't believe in my price, or you don't believe in what I want,
your
like
home.
That kind of stuff. You don't believe in my home, like that kind of stuff.
And just know, like, at least in California, guys, there are things that affect the value of the property. It's funny because I'll give you guys a story. I have a property in a senior community that backs to the golf course. And one of my agents who's newer showed the property, and he's like, hey, dude, you're way overpriced. And he's like, my client says that he wants to go 750. And what I told him, I'm like, hey, young pup, I think that you don't have enough experience to be able to, I think that you're delusional, to be quite honest. I tell you this, I sold another property in that same community that didn't back to the golf course that was very similar in square feet, and I sold that at 800. It's basically $50,000, which is less than 10% for that golf view. It literally is an escrow at the full asking price. And it's funny because when I went back to him, I'm like, hey, bro, like, I'm going to sell it at the full price. And I'm going to come back to you when I do. And I'm going to be like, hey, I told you so. And sure enough, like it was just that, like, there are things that make properties more desirable. And there are adjustments that need to be made for some of those things.
Agreed. And this is where that specialized knowledge of being able to interpret the data
basically.
And nobody would know that unless they're, kind of doing deals in the geographic area, right? So, but to your point, the whole purpose of this is to get them to self-discover, right?
Yeah.
And if you do this really right, oftentimes what they'll say in that self-discovery, they might say like, well, what do you think, Jose? Now they've asked for your opinion. See, people give their opinion without being asked. And think about in your private life. If somebody gives you an opinion without you asking them, you're not going to listen to it with a high degree of probability. Versus if you do this right, then they'll oftentimes ask you. So as we go through the sold comps, what's going to happen is a range is going to emerge there, right? And what we're doing is again, the actives gives like one end of the range, the closes gives the other end of the range. And then we'll say something like, so having seen this information, Jose, having seen what's active on the market, not selling, seen what's sold and closed most recently. Again, if you guys were going to buy this home all over again, you and Mariela, where do you think you would feel comfortable making an offer that you believe would be reflective of fair market value? And then shut up. Let Jose think. Let him look at his wife and be like, what do you think? Like, let that process happen.
And here's a pro tip as well too. Like, let's say that they tell you, well, I was thinking 850 and it's a husband and a wife. I may turn to the wife and be like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes.
Before, like, I'll be like, what are your thoughts on that? And she'll be like, well, I was kind of thinking like 825. And now it starts a dialogue between the husband and the wife. And that's like a like, as soon as the husband says 850, I'm like, and what are your thoughts on that? And it also, like, there's two people that typically make a decision. It's the husband and the wife. You're incorporating the other partner into that decision, which makes them feel important, which now both people feel like you understand them versus alienating one of the spouses and only focusing on the other one.
Yeah, and I was aware at the beginning of my career, I would do that. I'd only speak to one that I thought was the decision maker, and that was a mistake because then they're like, well, you didn't even include me in this process, right? So that is 100% a pro tip. And or if I know in pre-qual that the husband's going to be, or the wife, whichever one is going to be the one that's like arms crossed, like resistant, I'm always going to look at the other one and be like, what do you think?
And it's funny because sometimes even when the spouse that responds is the unrealistic one, and I know like I showed him the comps are clearly showing 850, and he's like, yeah, I think like 900,000. I'll look at the wife and I'll be like, what are your thoughts on that? And then I'll smile, and then the wife will be like, no, I think like 850. And now it wasn't me that said 850. It starts a dialogue between them.
And then what the pro tip is as well, let that happen.
Yeah.
Let them talk it out and don't say a word. Like, shut up. Like, let them have the conversation. It demonstrates two things. One, they trust you if they're willing to have that conversation in front of you. But also, two, that's where it's actually going to get worked out. You know what I mean? Like, let it be. Like, resist the temptation to be like, yeah. Like when the wife says, that's too high. Don't be like, yeah, I agree with you. Just be like, just sit there and shut up. Just be like,
let them talk it out. And then they may say, well, what are your thoughts, Jose? And that's a trick question. And I don't think that we'll be able to get into that in today's episode.
Yeah.
But I think that we should continue this conversation. The other thing that I want to do for our viewers as well, too, is I want to help people, like, because we're making cash offers to people. And sometimes we're using the cash offer to get our foot in the door, to get in front of them, basically. And I want to teach our viewers, because it's the same presentation that we're doing. The bones are exactly the same. It's just a few adjustments to words, basically. Yeah. And if we're able to make those adjustments, then we're able to have more possibilities to take more listings.
Yeah. And I think as the environment, I think the amount of transactions that we have will stay relatively consistent for a good amount of time, like that 4 million-ish, because I don't see rates coming down dramatically, which would increase demand in a while just because of the inflation issue. So cash offers is a mechanism to get people to raise their hand, and having that in your tool belt, I think that's part of being the agent of the future, is you have many more options and choices to provide clients other than just listing their property. So knowing how to do that is a skill, and it's also a mental map for agents to get out of just thinking like, you got to list, you got to list, you got to list. It's like, nah, dude, we could do this multiple different ways.
100%. So next week, maybe what we can do, and I wanted, and if you guys notice, I wasn't speaking that much. I wanted you guys to get Aaron's frame as it relates to the listing presentation, knowing that next week I'll be doing mine as it relates to transitioning cash offers into listing appointments at the listing presentation, how to build up trust without making them feel like you're trying to lowball them on an offer and trying to steal their home.
Hey, that was Jose's very skillful way to be like, on the next call, Aaron, shut up.
Shut up.
hey, Elite Builders, let's do more deals coast to coast. I look forward to seeing you soon, brother. Peace out.
All right, guys. Later.
Later.